As we dive into this verse, hopefully that you'll be able to understand it as we dive into King Felipe of Spain and what that looks like in carrying that blueprint and the consequences, like for yourself, if you had gone into a conflict as what he went into before he took over his kingdom, if you're courage enough to fire your own family member or take away their title. And so let's dive in as we see here what King Solomon had presented about 3,000 years ago when he had reigned. Most people, when they look at this word, all is more like the all things more in the materialistic level, materials of life. But we're going to dive more into this word first, as in all, as in the people, the souls. Diving into this angle, you're seeing more of the bigger picture of what's happening in life, what you're diving into, and what it actually, how it's going to impact you as you carry on and fulfilling that. So, bringing in these two words, the things and the material things in life, when individuals dive into the material things, there's like what we've discussed in other verses, you become empty in that there's this emptiness as you're pursuing your blueprints, not realizing is it actually your blueprint or is it more of a thing of trying to fit into society, of trying to obtain that type of title or that type of position. And that's where most people will feel empty is as they chase that dream, as they chase that type of material thing that they're pursuing, whether it's a profession in, like, say, in sports or in being an actor or being building your own business. If you are building your own business just to make a name for yourself versus seeing more of the whole and how you can actually serve for humanity and how to make impact and how to better individuals' lives, you're unable to really see that impact if you're not as genuine in your walk with and your connection with the individuals that you connect with. So again, that emptiness is that lack of relationship in God, in Jesus Christ, in our sovereign Yeshua. Some people pronounce it Yahshua and others Yeshua, depending on the root of where they're coming from. Following of your passion for Christ, it will present you will present yourself to the people as you communicate with them, as you interact with them. They'll see that and the mirror of what you're reflecting and what you're showing. So, however, your relationship is with God, as you build that throughout your lifetime or throughout your chapters in your relationship with God, people can really feel that energy that you're bringing forth. Going to the next word are full of full. This word is more like, let's see, I'm going this direction. Full is more of that devouring what is there in front of you. And that is more like in a negative way of obtaining and trying to, again, build that title for yourself. And so, in this angle, it's the spiritual angle of it, of that lack of in Christ. As one is going into that, all things are full of labor. Full is there where you're diving into whatever you're trying to pursue in life. And if that's a rat race without any pause, without any connections, and you're cutting off all your ties with individuals, there's a good side of it and there's a bad side. So, as we dive into King Felipe VI of Spain, what occurred with him in his reign before he took it is that he had stepped his before he actually dives into anything in life, he dives in and studies that platform or that kingdom or wherever he's walking into. So he actually has a better understanding of his title and how he's going to be presenting himself. And so before he took that reign under his father, he dived in on actually what was happening within his kingdom of the royalty family. And he had discovered that his father was actually mingling around with the money and really taking some part of those finances on the outside of the country overseas onto another bank. And he found out, King Felipe found out that he was a beneficiary of that account. And so everything started making sense to him on the corruption within the monarchy of what was actually happening and what his father was actually doing. And because of that, he saw and understood why the people in Spain were starting to not trust in the monarchy, not trust in the royal family, not trust in their government, is because of what was happening. And of course, as you see when it comes to the government and politics, if the higher up are using their own benefits of corruption and taking people's money for their own, you're able to see how it is really like the have-nots, the have, and the those who don't have the money is because as money is being pulled out of the system, out of the people, and is being jeopardized in ways that the elite or the royalty status of individuals really take advantage of that system. It shows that this corruption within the whole. And so, as one creates some type of emptiness, one is affected. And you start seeing how everyone is actually connected. King Felipe, he had realized that his father was actually mingling with the money for his own use. And so people were starting to feel the pain of that cause they were able to feel the consequences based on what his father was doing. And so, like in any country that takes advantage of the system, you start seeing more homeless people or different organizations. It's like different areas, different pockets within the country is not stabilized due to the corruption. So, as individuals dive in into just devouring that and pursuing that and what they believe is their dream, but it isn't, and it isn't, say, like what his father was doing, that wasn't in God's will. And King Felipe was able to discern that. And as he walked into the kingdom and owned it, and he was able to transition from taking the throne, he actually cut off his father. He cut off his title in order to bring the trust back to his people. So labor, as a person dives into that passion in life or that blueprint, individuals who have dived deep into the labor aspect where they become drained in the energy, and that's where they feel empty. But there's this positive angle of blueprints, which is what King Felipe did. It's deep into, so he's in that connection with God. You can tell that he has a relationship with God, and so in having that angle, that anybody who dives in is that passion to stabilize the system. But that labor becomes a passion, and it won't feel like work. On the negative side, if you're really caught up on the material side of it with no connection in yourself and others, life and God, the labor will definitely feel like work, and it won't feel like you're actually in the flow. When a person is in their destiny, they're feeling as if they're in this flow and they're always tuning in to what God is guiding them, what they need to do, and the next step, and where they need to go, and the people that they need to connect with. When you're in your destiny, you're actually able to experience the serendipities and the connections. Again, when it comes to this angle, it's more of one's blueprint of what King Felipe was walking into his title as a king. And anyway, so he had that passion to really understand how corrupt the system was, the passion to change it by taking the title away from his father once he took over. So when the man cannot, they're stuck in that material of not being actualized. So that's the non-actualization. Actualization. Man cannot see it or hear it. So in this line is he's unable to utter it. He's unable to speak it. Is because he has this non-actualized awakening. So he's mainly sleepwalking. He's mainly walking like a robot, um, just doing things in this routine way without being aware of what he's doing. That non actualization is when you're actually disconnected in your destiny and you are actually disconnected from others around you. This angle is more of a function within the mind. Many many people who follow their dream in life, not connected to God or have the spiritual awakening. They're mostly functioning more of this material world of the logical part of their mind, where the heart is actually not actualized. It's not connected. It's not bridged from their mind to their heart. So they're unable to speak what it is because they're caught up in their own world, in this world of linear way of thinking. And it says the eye is not satisfied with seeing. And so that's what happened with King Felipe when he had understood what was happening within his family of the corruption of what they were doing with the taxes, like his sister and the husband. They were also, in a way, unlawfully handling money with their taxes. And he also took her out of that royalty title. And so he was more in pursuing that blueprint, pursuing that monarchy, pursuing the trust back from his people. So the monarchy doesn't fall apart due to what his father was doing and what his sister and the husband were mingling with the money and not being honest within the system that the monarchy had created for a stabilized society, civilization within Spain. And so he had the awakening to understand of of that angle and present it and be more public for people to actually see what's happening, to let them know that he's not there to be king to be in secret of his own actions like what his father and his sister was doing. As when he's reigning into a king and he took that title over, he had presented it that it's a new monarchy in these new times, trying to help his people that yes, the monarchy is corrupt. Yes, the system is the foundation of it is cracked, but allow me. That's what he was trying to present. Allow me to step in and gain that trust back by presenting the corruption and presenting on the solutions behind it. And so he made it public and he announced the corruption and what the transitions and the chapters that were happening into a better society, into building that foundation again. So the I is not satisfied. This is where he saw that even though he had read and dived in into understanding the corruption of what was happening within his family, what they were doing, he wasn't satisfied with where it was at. And so that's where King Felipe had the courage and he was very determined based on the trainings that he had when he went into the military and studied all the three branches, and he was really educational in all areas of life. He was able to present that in a fatherly way, like certain leaders of the world. He was able to take that title away from his father and take his sister away from the royalty circle, also. And so he wasn't afraid to present the corruption within his family. And so that's where you need to step in, like what do you need to do when it comes to if you see somebody in your family or within your business and it's not happening and it's not in alignment with your protocols or the procedures or the guidelines. And he was able to really present the solution by taking out the title. And that is where he was actually cutting the ties from his family. He cut ties, and in cutting ties, you're creating boundaries. You're creating this boundary for people to actually respect you. And you have to be strong when you're creating that boundary, and it's not like going around the bush and presenting it. So you're trying not to hurt their feelings. It's trying to be more upfront and forward and present it in ways that where their soul actually needs to hear it. So it's good that King Felipe VI of Spain had taken out that title away from his father due to his just mingling with the money and taking just really being greedy, taking it for himself and abusing that power. If he didn't do that, if he didn't take away that title from his father would not have seen that he was actually in this Luciferic way of presenting himself in ways that is just not Christ-like, and it wasn't godly. And so that's where it was good for him to take out the title from his father and took out his sister from the circle, is to help them see the consequences. And how does that look like when we carry our blueprint and we want to uphold it by confronting those loved ones and the connections that we have so we can help them grow also. And so he was not satisfied, and what he did was, of course, cut the line, took off their titles. And how does that look like for you in your life? What do you need to do when it comes to upstepping and wanting to see the results of what what should happen? What are the steps that you need to do? Going back to this, all things are full of labor. Man cannot utter it. The eye is not satisfied. So going back to the eye is the window of the soul. The eye is the window of the soul. And as you dive into your own spirituality and to your own awakening and your own relationship with God, you're able to see through a person's soul and see what their motives are. You're able to understand where they're coming from, and you're able to really discern soul in a way before before you've even spoken to them, before you actually knew them. So the soul, if the soul is not actualized and connected in God, of course it's not gonna have an awakening of what needs to happen. So King Felipe was able to see what he needed to change because of his soul is actually has that stabilization, that actualization, the connection in God. And on a deeper level, when it comes to this angle, the eye is also, when it's actualized, it's also the third eye, the pineal gland that's activated. And so, as that pineal gland is activated and declassified in God, you're able to really walk your destiny, your blueprint. And so, it's strong. And King Felipe, as you study him, you're able to really see that he's carrying his blueprint. He's strong like a father. He's presenting himself as a real stabilized king is because of his connection to God. The soul that he carries, it's stable, it's grounded, it's people are drawn to him. And he has this essence like any star seed, old soul, he has this essence to create whenever he walks into a room, the energy that he carries, people feel it, and it can magnify depending on the soul age, the soul experience, its evolution in life. The ear, nor the ear, field. But let's just focus on the ear as we have these spiritual senses, past past the five senses, the spiritual eye, and then we have the spiritual ear. We have the third eye, the pineal gland, the ear, and hearing. The spiritual ear, if you ever hear a ringing in your ear, which is different from the tinnitus um, noise, ring, those are two different noises, hearing, ringing. The spiritual ear is more the inside. It's going to be more like behind the physical ear, back more like an inch into there. So the hearing also, you'll feel the your pineal gland activate, and you'll feel the energy within your own brain of where the muscle, the circuitry is actually opening up to the next realm of hearing. And that's actually a guidance from the higher up, from the heavens, from your angels, from your guides. And anyway, so that's what happens when the soul is activated. When the soul is activated, active, you have your spiritual, these are spiritual gifts that are opened up. The spiritual gifts that are opened up is to help yourself in alignment with God. You're actually working with God. So he's guiding you as you have your ears and your eyes open. Ears, eyes. And then so beyond the senses, you'll also feel you'll have this spiritual sense, like your spiritual ear of hearing and spiritual eyes of seeing. You'll have the spiritual sense of feeling where the person is at, even before they walked into the room or even before you met them. Or the ear filled with hearing. And on a physical level, that's where King Felipe was not satisfied with what he was hearing of his family, what was happening. He could have gotten like different types of reports of like, this is what your father was doing, but really he wasn't really doing that, or this is what your sister was doing, but really it may look like that, but it wasn't. And so he wasn't satisfied with what reports he was hearing, is because he was listening to God and he was being guided. And so he has the mandate by God to have that title to understand where his family members are. And without that type of awakening, you're unable to really discern where each soul is at in your family or in your business or in the mission in life that you're doing. You're unable to discern what needs to happen because of that disconnect and that non-actualization. Anyways, so I hope you're able to really understand what I had presented here, and that comes down to our ending in this verse as we studied it word for word, as we studied the King James version of the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 1, verse 8. And now you see what you need to do, what you need to step into. Just get out of that box, get out of that comfort zone, and to really be who you need to be in God as you see corruption outside of you, and really stabilize your foundation and the workings within your environment, and really be bold and have those boundaries set, those responsibilities and accountability onto individuals that had stepped out of that alignment and that order. And yeah, and thank you again for joining me. And I'll see you in the next verse of the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 1, verse 9, and in the book of King James Version. And if this message really resonated with you, please pass it on to your family or your friends and really dive in into the word for word when it comes to the verse whenever you're studying, and really allow God to really work with you and allow him to see for allow him to show you what's presented in a more bigger context. And yeah, so we can all have this awakening and this growth and a consciousness where we bring in higher light life. And thank you again.